Sunday on The Attorneys, protecting your home from termites.
We'll tell you what you need to know about selecting an inspector and what to do if you find an infestation.
Call, text, email, then join me along with the experts from the firm of Hollis, Wright. Join us Sunday after the news at 10.
Car crash cases, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys with Josh Wright from the law firm of Hollis Wright and host David Lamb.
Hello and welcome into The Attorneys. My hope is that at this point you're not eating, laying in bed watching the show tonight, because tonight's show is something special. Everything you ever wanted to know about termites and their infestation, possibly even in your home right now. We're going to learn a whole lot about it, so you're going to want to be involved. All the questions you've wanted answered about termites, how they work, what they do, and anything you want to know, this is the show to get them in. You could call, text, email, that information on the screen all throughout the show. Who knew whenever you started this attorney's idea, devote a whole show to termites?
Not us.
Yeah.
David, thanks for having us. We appreciate it, and we love doing this show. And this is one of those things that when we started this show, had no idea that it is an issue that faces everybody, really. I mean, you have a bond on your house, you think everything's fine. A lot of times it's not. And that's one of the reasons we brought Tom Campbell on the show with us today. And there is no better authority in the state of Alabama. If you got a case that involves termites, Tom's the guy we call. Tom's the guy you should call.
Tom, good to see you.
I'm glad to be here. I hope we can learn a lot about termites.
That is the hope. I think when you were on before, I asked you this question, but it's curious to me. How did you become the guy, the go-to guy when it comes to termites?
Well, believe it or not, when I was in law school, I clerked for a big corporate firm, and we had an awful case where there was a misapplication of termite chemicals. Okay. And there used to be a termite chemical that was extremely poisonous to humans. And it was a serious case, and we had to investigate it. And I found out through that chemical was not going to be used anymore. And the regulators told me the replacement chemicals were very expensive, didn't last long, and the companies weren't using it. Mm-hmm. And they said as a result of that, in the late 1990s, once termites have done enough damage for homeowners to run vacuum cleaners through baseboards and that sort of thing, you'll see an explosion of termite damage claims. So I figured, well, I'll work for this nice big corporate firm, make a nice salary for a few years, and then in the late 1990s, I'll represent distressed homeowners. So that's what I've made a business of doing for the last dozen or so years.
Yeah, that's working. So how big of a problem and how devastating can a little old small termite, how much damage can they do?
Well, we have a number of cases in the office right now where people are literally going to have their houses torn down. We've got a case, in Guin that we started just a couple of weeks ago, bought a house, the report said it was fine, no history of termites or other problems in the house. 4 months later, their living room floor was literally laying on the ground. In the Deep South, it's the worst termite problem of anywhere in the country. And if your house is in the Deep South, as of course we are, it's really not a question of if, but when you're going to get termite damage. And the reason is, unfortunately, that what we found is that virtually all the companies never put out the vaccination that can prevent termites in the first place. If you've got termites, the reason for that is simple. They didn't apply the vaccination that was paid for.
Really? Josh, in your experience, as these cases come across your desk and your attention, what surprises you about the topic and kind of the whole issue of what we're discussing tonight?
I think it's ignorance to some degree, and let me say this, I'm talking about myself as much as anybody else. I'll use myself as an example. When my wife and I bought our little house in Homewood in 2006, it had a termite bond that came with it. We thought everything was hunky-dory, and we've renewed our bond every single year because it's they call us and they say, hey, your bond's new. I assume that when they come out and do their inspection and they renew my bond that everything is fine. Everything's great, and I would imagine that the vast majority of Alabamians believe the same thing. We're going to talk about this today, and Tom is the authority on it. That is not the case. As he just said, oftentimes more than not, if we've got a termite issue, it's because it wasn't applied properly. You're paying for the service. A lot of times it's not being done. I get people who call me and say, I paid for X. This is what they told me they did. Why do I have this problem? And I have to plead the exact same problem they have, and that is, well, I would think it was being done correctly too, and that's why we get Tom involved.
Yeah, just not the case. Now, Tom, you have on a nice suit tonight, but you're not afraid to get your hands dirty, I hear.
Well, I like to say we're the dirtiest lawyers in Alabama. You know, I didn't do this when I started off.
Right.
But, you know, what I found is if you'll put on a crawl suit and crawl down in a crawl space that's
And here's some
nasty,
pictures. Yeah, that's you in action.
your opponents won't do it.
Right.
And the experts have to tell the truth, and the regulators know you're going to go down there and look over their shoulder and make sure they did a good inspection.
Yeah.
And so we typically send me or another lawyer from my office. We crawl the house. We take the pictures. We take the videos.
And yeah, there's video here. We have video too. I want you to tell us what you're doing. You're actually beneath a home.
This
here?
is disturbing.
Yeah.
The reason we're showing this video is because this wood looks solid.
It does.
It sounds solid to the most part to an untrained person when you tap on it. But I take the sharp end of this pry bar right now and pop open that 2x4 that's holding up a
look at
porch.
that.
And it is completely hollowed out by termite damage. And the point of that is that you can do an eyeball inspection yourself, or an inspector can, when he walks around your house for 5 minutes with a flashlight, tell you everything's fine. You have no idea that there's a disaster waiting inside the wood in your home.
Yeah.
Because termites die if they're exposed to the air, so they only eat the inside of the wood. They don't eat the outside.
Right.
That's why a termite inspection has to be carefully done. You're not looking for damaged woods. You're looking for signs of damaged wood that are very, very subtle.
And another piece of video that we've got, I want you to walk us through this one as well and kind of what we're looking at here. What is this?
Well, this is an example of a house that has rigid foam board insulation on it. And this is used as the sheathing on a house. The problem with this is made out of polystyrene or styrofoam, and termites don't eat this. The only thing termites eat is wood and cellulose material, but they mine superhighways through this insulating material, and as you can see, easily go everywhere in the house. And what this example also shows is that termites don't behave the way we think they do because of 5th grade ant farm experiments.
Right.
They don't travel in a predictable pattern. Their pattern of infestation is completely random. And if you took what you're seeing in that video and you multiplied that times the side of your house, that's how random damage can be. But especially when they get in this foam insulation, they're going to mine that, bring mud up in there from the ground, which is what you saw in those valleys in that insulation, to keep their environment moist so they don't dehydrate. And they're going all over your house, which is what they did in a Meadowbrook home that we're involved with, that's going to have to be torn down.
Okay, and I think we have one other piece of video. Let's get this in and talk to us about what we're seeing here.
This is an example again. The wood looks solid on the outside. What you see at the bottom is a mud tunnel coming up from the ground, a shelter tube that termites travel through. Got in that wood that it looks solid, still looks solid.
And those are
the
termites down there?
Those are all termites. They're tiny. They're about the size of a grain of rice. You may have 500,000 of those in a regular termite colony.
And you're picking this apart with your hand.
Right, right. That's Kieran McGowan, one of our lawyers' fingers, and I'm holding the camera and doing a very bad job of it. But he's peeling that open. In this house, you can literally hear those termites eating. I mean, literally for a decade and a half, I would have clients tell me, I could hear termites eating inside my wall. And I thought they were disturbed, or they were so emotional that they were making it up and they thought they heard termites. And I'd say, let's not talk about that at trial.
You're not helping me.
You're not helping. You don't want to sound like you're crazy.
Put that on your prep list.
That's
Don't
right.
say
and
that.
It's like, and I went in this house and we got in the crawl space because my law colleague says, you got to hear this. And I literally went down there, and I have a hearing problem, and I could hear those termites eating down there. And we popped that wood open, and that's what was in there. You could literally hear, a hearing impaired person like me could hear them eating the wood.
Yeah, so like Josh was saying, I'm in the same boat. So we think with the termite bond we're good. Are we good? Are we protected?
Well, the scary and short answer is there's no way to tell for sure, but the answer is probably not.
Oh, great.
It is very expensive, very time consuming to apply this termite barrier. if somebody does it to a house that's already built, and say it's an average size brick home that's 1,800 square feet for the part that touches the ground, you're looking about at spending probably 20 man hours of labor to treat that house correctly, drilling hundreds of holes and applying hundreds of gallons of chemical. And that treatment that I just described should probably cost $1,500 to $2,000. Oftentimes you'll see people have been sold a termite protection treatment and they've paid $300, $400, $600, and you can go out and do the math, look at the label, see how much they should have used, and they couldn't buy the chemical and pay the guy to drive to the house for the amount of money they charge for a treatment.
Yeah, some sobering thoughts and statistics and even video tonight. Going to be an interesting show. We're talking termites. Would love to hear from you. You can call, text, email. Also find out and chat with the firm of Hollis Wright at Facebook if you search the term Hollis Wright. And Twitter, they are at Hollis_Wright. Stay tuned. More termite fun ahead right here on The Attorneys.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, and thanks for watching The Attorneys on Alabama's 13. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never need legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple. Provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Now, your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to this show or related to other civil legal matters, call, email, or text us to talk with one of our lawyers. You can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter to learn about important legal news that could affect you or your family, or simply contact us by going to alabamas13.com and click on the Attorneys link. Now, we know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and for watching The Attorneys right here on Alabama's 13.
Things you need to know. We were talking about termites and how to protect probably the biggest investment you will make, and that is your home. Welcome back in to The Attorneys. As we come back from break, want to remind you, would love to hear from you. You can call, text, email, join in on our conversation all about termites tonight.
That's right, David. And just to remind our viewers, if you call in, we've got live attorneys ready to answer the calls. We do take the calls live. If you can't get on the air, we've got 2 lawyers standing by to take calls, and we'll get you in touch with who can help you. If it's about this topic, we're definitely going to get you in touch with Tom. And I got a question for Tom before we pick up one of the other ones. But I've had inspectors come out to my house. I don't know what they should be bringing. I don't know what they should be doing. Help us understand, like, what kind of tools should they have? What should we be watching for them to do? I mean, what should a typical inspection look like?
Well, if your inspector shows up and he's got starched jeans and an otherwise neat and clean appearance, you're probably in trouble. Because they need to spend about an hour at an average size house, not talking about Alabama or Auburn football, but actually probing and sounding wood with tools like this pry bar or a screwdriver or something like that, looking for telltale signs of hollowed out wood, going all the way to the attic in your home, carefully going through your basement, and if you have a drop ceiling, lifting up those tiles and tapping the sill plates on top of the foundation, trying to hear hollowed out wood or trying to see really tiny signs of dirt or mud that a termite colony may have brought up into the house. If they're going into the crawl space, if you've got a crawl space home, they should have a crawl suit to put on, and they should go in there after they inspect the inside of your house, and you should hear them down there for a long time tapping and banging on wood under your house to try to find hollow sounding wood. And it should take a substantial amount of time. People are going to say, the termite guy comes, he walks around the outside of my house, chats me up, leaves me a bill, tells me how wonderful and beautiful my house is, and he's gone. You've been defrauded when that happens, unfortunately, because what you're paying them for each year is for that careful inspection. If they show up and they're spraying chemicals outside your house and giving you the impression that that's a booster treatment on an annual basis for termites, you're in real trouble, because that is not a treatment for termites. It's either just spraying water or just a weak bug spray to kill spiders and ants. That's a problem in the viewing area for this station. There's some companies in some parts of this viewing area that make people think that you're getting an annual treatment for termites, and you're not. They're doing that spray around your house to cover up the fact they're skipping an inspection.
Just to follow up, is this something I can do myself? I mean, I think I'm being educated as much as our viewers, but is this something I can treat myself? You know, you're saying don't spray outside. Can I walk into Lowe's and buy something and do this myself, or do I really need to get a company that knows what they're doing?
No, you need a professional to do this. There's some chemicals that you can get in Home Depot or Lowe's that say they kill termites, but what you're doing is you're not trying to kill termites you can see. What you're trying to do is to put a chemical barrier under and around the foundation of your home that termites are going to have to go through. Termites are called subterranean termites because they live in the ground like an ant colony, and they need the moisture and the protection of the ground. So the theory is you put a chemical barrier in the soil, they have to go through it to get to your house, and there's going to be poison there if the treatment's done correctly. I wouldn't recommend doing that for yourself. It would cost thousands of dollars to buy the correct equipment, but don't try to do it yourself. And even doing the inspection yourself is a reasonably intelligent person with a good aptitude for mechanics could teach themselves how to do that, but it would take a day or two, and you just can't train yourself to do every professional trade that you need in a lifetime.
Yeah. A question we've got here: my termite company denied paying for repair to my home. How do I know if I have a case?
You probably do. You need to start from the assumption that you have a case, and the reason for that is if the company had properly applied and then maintained that barrier I've talked about in the soil, your home shouldn't have termites in the absence of some sort of negligent act in most situations. And so you need to have professionals that know how to look over their shoulder, to look at the company's records, and to inspect your house to determine what is the cause of that happening. Think of it in terms of the vaccine I did earlier. If your child gets diphtheria, it's a result of 3 causes. You didn't get your child vaccinated with the diptet, your doctor provided a fake diptet vaccine, or they were provided a defective diptet vaccine. Those are basically the same reasons you've got termites. You didn't get a treatment, you paid for a treatment and they didn't provide it, or you paid for a treatment and they provided a defective one, or the chemical that they used wore off.
Okay. What cases do you have that, or have you had, related to termite companies?
We've had tons of cases, some of them where there's only a slight amount of damage in the home, to cases where houses have had to be torn down. We've also had some mass action cases where we've joined together a lot of homeowners where their basic claim is we've paid for the initial treatment, we've paid annual premiums for 10, 20, 30 years, and we've never gotten the service that we've paid for. We haven't torn open our walls to find hidden termite damage. The experts say that there should be hidden damage in our walls, but those are cases too where the house has a diminished value because it has probable hidden damage inside of the walls because the treatment hasn't been provided. And we've handled cases like that from, South Georgia to California.
Right. Yeah. If you are just a homeowner watching the show tonight, are there some telltale signs that can tell me if I have a termite problem?
There certainly are, but it's going to take a very careful inspection, and it's going to take someone who's experienced in using these techniques. I probably wouldn't do a good job inspecting my own house just because I'm so familiar with it, or I think I am, that I'm going to look past the signs of termite damage. But let me give you an example of something they ought to be doing on an inspection. They should take a flashlight and go along the sheetrock, the wallboard in your house, and point it at an angle along your wall very carefully. And what they're looking for are slight imperfections in the paint that indicate a ridge or a valley under the paint, and what that indicates is that termites have tunneled up between the paint and the plaster and the sheetrock, and they've eaten that sheetrock paper. And that's an indication that they've tunneled in those walls. So you can do that yourself, for example, but most people don't have the patience for it. They don't have the aptitude. They don't have the tools.
So it's really better just to make sure that your termite company is performing.
Right. And
Yeah.
you're going to need that service anyway.
Right.
So you're paying somebody to provide it. What your time needs to be spent doing is making sure they're providing
They're
you the
doing what they're
inspection you deserve.
Yeah, good deal. Time for our second break. As we head to break, a reminder that we'd love to hear from you. Chime in on our conversation tonight. Call, text, email. Also find the Term of Hollis Wright on Facebook and Twitter. Stay tuned. More coming up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright. If you've ever served on a jury, you may have wondered why there are gaps in the evidence you're given at trial. In today's Legal 4-in-1, we're answering the question, is there insurance to pay the verdict? Know this, just because the lawyers never mention insurance in a trial, it doesn't mean there's not insurance to pay the verdict. Rule 4-in-1 of the Alabama Rules of Evidence states this: evidence that a person was or was not insured against liability is generally not admissible or allowed to be discussed at trial in front of the jury. The reason for the rule is simple. A jury could award more money in a case if they knew the defendant had insurance to pay for it. But the reality in our state is this: in almost all lawsuits that get to a trial, insurance is there to pay judgments awarded by the jury. For example, all automobiles in Alabama are required to have liability insurance. Coverage can range from $25,000 up to $1 million in these cases. In theory, all car crash cases that get to trial should have insurance available to pay any verdict awarded in the case. Trucks have to carry anywhere from $750,000 to $5 million worth of insurance. Unfortunately, you'll never hear that here in the trial. Even in medical malpractice cases, the doctor has liability insurance to help pay a judgment. That's something you won't hear during trial because the rules just don't allow that testimony. Yet almost all judgments against a doctor involve liability insurance. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our promise and pledge to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys right here on Alabama's 13.
Hard to believe that little old termite can cause billions of dollars in damage. Welcome back in to the Attorneys. Appreciate you being with us. Our final segment here. So just a few minutes remaining. Go ahead and get those questions in to us. Here with Tom Campbell. Tom's got more props.
Tom's got props. So we were talking at the break, Tom, about the amount of damage that they could do. You brought some wood with us. Show us what we're talking about. I mean, how bad does this really get?
I did. This piece of wood right here probably weighs less than an ounce. I personally pulled this out of the crawl space in a home just a couple of weeks ago, and what's falling out of it, if you can see it right here, it's just full of what's called frass from powder post beetles. This piece of wood had termite damage, powder post beetle damage in it, and wood rot all in the same piece of wood. This piece of wood, you can go under there. Somebody was supposed to tap on this with a hammer or a screwdriver, and they claim this house had no damage. I mean, literally, you know, it's just, it's completely
brittle.
destroyed. I mean, it weighs about as much as a feather.
What y'all probably can't see, just the viewer probably can't see this detail, but when Tom popped that, there's a cloud of dust. I mean, it's literally like the wood just disintegrated around us. In fact, he's wearing most of it on his suit. It is a mess. I mean, is that typical of the kind of damage you see in these cases, or is that a pretty extreme case?
That's an extreme case. both in terms of the extent of damage, the fact that it's got 3 different species of wood-destroying organism damage in it, and by the fact that virtually the entire crawl space of this house looked like that. And the termite inspection company issued a perfectly clear report on it, said there was no sign of past or current wood-destroying organism infestation in it.
How do the cases come to you? I mean, I guess by the time they get to you, something has collapsed, or because those little old bugs inside, you can't see it. So at what point, whenever they come to you, what are the problems they're running into?
Usually, and that's one reason we're doing the show right now. A lot of times people will have a swarm of termites in their house, and that's what causes them to think they have a problem. They call their company, maybe they start inspecting their home themselves.
Right.
They find a small problem. They ask the termite company to fix it. They have a hunch that they're getting the runaround. And the people that usually come to me have gone to another lawyer, and that lawyer says, I think, believe it or not, there's some people that specialize in this. And somebody makes 5 or 6 calls and they find out I'm that guy,
Right.
and we wind up talking to them about the case. Or they go on the internet and they do a web search about termite damage and wind up calling us.
Tom, just because we don't practice in this area, it's one of the reasons I was glad to have you on, but I mean, what kind of damages are you talking about? Obviously, you've got damage to the home, you've got some fraud claims related to the service that's provided, but what claims are you asserting in these kind of cases, and where's the recovery coming from?
You've got 3 types of damage. You've got injury to the property, you've got emotional distress damages to the homeowner, and you've got punitive damages, if appropriate, to punish the company if we prove they're engaged in a pattern of wrongdoing or really gross wrongdoing. And the injury to the property is usually either the cost of repairing it or the diminished value of the home, which is ordinarily more than the cost of repairs, but sometimes it's less. Sometimes it costs more money to repair the house even than it's worth. And that happens a lot with older homes that have depreciated.
A question we've got here. I bought a home 3 months ago. I was told it was free of termite damage. My husband just found significant damage in our crawl space. Who all can be held responsible to fix the damage?
When people come to us, they want to sue everybody involved in the transaction.
Right.
The seller, the real estate agent, the termite company. Usually we wind up only making a claim against the termite company unless we have clear evidence of intentional fraud by the seller
Right.
and the real estate company. Oftentimes they've been kept in the dark and they didn't know anything about it too. Or even if they did, for example, the seller doesn't have any money to pay the claim
Right.
anyway.
Yeah. Just time enough for a final thought. So we'll start, Tom, with you. Final thought on tonight's subject.
Don't bury your head in the sand.
Right.
One of the things that termite companies depend upon is that they're going to tell you your problem is small, and they know that's what you want to hear, and they tell you that, and you say, good, thank goodness, it's just a baseboard.
Right.
And really your entire wall needs to be torn out, and you've got a claim that's tens of thousands of dollars in damage, and if you don't investigate it and bring it, the statute of limitations run,
Right.
and you have to pay it all on your dime.
Yeah, Josh, how about you?
Well, I mean, we talked about this before. Ignorance, it doesn't just extend to our viewing populace.
Yeah.
I think you and I have said this.
We do.
I feel more educated now, and I feel like this is an area I didn't know a lot about. I need to be more diligent. We all need to be more vigilant, and certainly an area that we need to really learn what our rights are.
And I've also learned, call Tom.
Call Tom.
Call Tom.
Call Tom.
Tom's got it, yeah, for sure. Ways you can get in touch with Tom, right through the numbers that you're going to see here. They'll put you right in touch with him. We appreciate you being with us. Call, text, email. Find the firm of Hollis Wright on Facebook and Twitter as well. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright.
Sunday on The Attorneys, protecting your home from termites.
We'll tell you what you need to know about selecting an inspector and what to do if you find an infestation.
Call, text, email, then join me along with the experts from the firm of Hollis, Wright. Join us Sunday after the news at 10.
Car crash cases, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys with Josh Wright from the law firm of Hollis Wright and host David Lamb.
Hello.